I was that guy getting up in the morning. I'd put on that suit of armor, that helmet, put the visor down, and I was charging because I could take on the world. Whatever it was, I could take on the world. And I went from being that guy to not being able to feed myself, not being able to go to the bathroom by myself. And at that same point in time, I saw nothing but every single person that I met for 60 days, as you said, just bring an absolute unconditional tidal wave of love.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Pursuit. Jeff Hutchin here along with John Saborev, and as you can tell, we've got a new setup. We've got a guest on the set with us. This is our brand new studio, and we're excited to bring today's guest to you. But before we get to Matt, let's talk a little bit about our presenting sponsor today, Premier Home Loans. These guys are amazing. If you are choosing to refinance, buy a new home, if you're building your dream home, you need a quality loan officer, someone that knows what they're doing, that knows the business, that cares about you first, and really representing your needs. These guys are amazing. They do an incredible job. They've done some work for you in the past, I know.
Yeah.
So, hey, if you're looking to make that big decision for you and your family, get somebody that cares about you, that knows what they're doing. Premier Home Loans is your group. So if you want to check them out, please go online. Give them a look. It's at www.premierhomeloansco.com. I'm not sure why I said www.
Well, because you have to make sure people go to the World Wide Web.
As opposed to just the local web.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to go to just the local web.
I just showed my age a little bit.
Yeah.
PremierHomeLoansCo.com is where you need to go to check it out. All right. Let's get to our guest today. Matt, welcome, my man. We are glad you're here. You are our first
guest.
I am honored to be here, proud to be here. I'm very excited.
And it won't be the last.
No, definitely not.
Because once you guys hear this story, you're going to say, I got to hear more from this guy because he's got an incredible journey. John, you met Matt first, so I'll give you the
Yes, you know what, and on that, social media I think is going to blow up once you tell part of your story here, and we're going to tee it up, and there's going to be more to follow. But this is Matt Crowe, and Matt and I met through a mutual friend, had coffee, and actually 3-hour coffee.
Yeah.
To the point of, and I could have sat there for 5 hours.
Me too.
And my jaw hit the floor about 5 minutes into this conversation. And I can't wait for our audience to hear what God has done in this man's life, because he literally is a walking miracle. And so, Matt, welcome. And if you would, just tee up the conversation, talk about what happened. So you're an avid mountain biker. 2 years ago, an amazing thing happened in your life, and what was that?
Well, so I was an avid road cyclist.
Okay.
I wouldn't say avid mountain biker, and I think that's about to be known pretty quickly that was not the case. So I had actually mountain biked years before, but I just get bumps and bruises. I have a fall, just kind of, what am I doing this for? Because I can get exercise other ways without getting beat up so bad. So I really went into road cycling. And then while I was training for a ride, some friends invited me to go on a mountain bike ride, and I thought it'd be great cross training up in Aspen and Snowmass. And so I went with them, and it was June 23rd, 2018, and that ended up being a really tough day. So I was almost all the way down the mountain. My friends were in front of me. They were just faster riders, better riders. And I tried to go around an aspen tree. I ended up hitting a rock and went over the handlebars. And on that day, I became a quadriplegic.
So you're laying there, and I can't imagine what the feeling. Were you experiencing a lot of pain? Were you having a hard time breathing? What initially what happened?
Well, so when I first landed, my face was halfway in the dirt, and so I could only see about 10 feet behind me, actually is what it was. And it turned out my neck had kind of been dislocated, so it was kind of over and down this way, and my hand was in front of my face on the ground. And when I first crashed, I really only thought that I landed on a rock or something like that on my back and kind of hurt a little bit. And then I went to get up, and that's when I realized that things were not normal. And the only thing that happened when I went to go do a push-up to get up like this is my thumb twitched. And I said, all right, let's take a minute. let's shake that off. Let's try that again. And I went to do it again. It was the same exact situation, and that's when I began to just panic, and I think shock set in. I just had thoughts race through my body and my mind, just what's going on. I just had one thought from another, just, am I going to live? Why can't I feel anything? Why can't I move? Am I ever going to see my family again? And they just kept rotating. One would come out and the next one would just take it over 2 seconds later. And I just sat there panicking. I couldn't move anything else. I couldn't feel anything anywhere. I couldn't even move my head. All I could do is move my jaw, and I couldn't even control my breathing, as a matter of fact. Breathing actually gets into a pretty big piece throughout this, but in the very beginning I wasn't even conscious of what my breathing was at the time. It was just this straight panic of I can't move, and then a little bit of cohesion came to my thoughts when I really started all of a sudden understanding. I'd been in the medical profession for a while, that I actually was breathing, and 2 minutes in, if I'm still breathing, at least something's going right. Because if I wasn't breathing after 2 minutes, I just sort of would have faded away into black, and that would have been it. But at that 2 minute mark, I sort of realized that I still was breathing. I couldn't control it. I think it was more on automatic pilot. My diaphragm was, and I was collapsed over, and so I couldn't expand my lungs. But it was this really hard, short, choppy, just breath. And that's all I could do. Couldn't change it. Couldn't pull in a big amount of air to try to yell for help. I actually tried to do that, and it just came out as the worst whimper that I'd ever even heard in my entire life.
And I can't even begin to relate to what you must have been feeling that moment. I mean, I can think of times where I've had the wind knocked out of me, where you can't get a breath, and instantly your body goes into panic, right? Which actually makes the problem even worse. So probably you were fighting those panic thoughts, the fact that you can't breathe, the fact that you can't move. I can't imagine the overwhelming.
We want to probably go back to something that's familiar, that is like this situation that I'm in now, because we want to understand, how do I deal with this and what's going to happen? You're left with a feeling, or lack thereof, that very few people on this earth experience. Yeah. And having to process through that. And you talked about some of the sort of fears and things that were racing through your mind before the medical part of you kicked in, that says, okay, let me rationally think about what has just happened and how I need to process this. What was that like in those first few moments where it's just you, the woods, the birds, quiet, and God?
Strange. Absolutely just surreal. Because that's, I'm trying to listen to see if I can hear anybody coming to my friends are already down the mountain. I know that it's going to take them a while to come back up. And, when I wasn't struggling, I sat there listening for something, and it was the most beautiful, serene sound, just birds chirping off in the distance. Just the sound of the forest. You can almost actually even hear the wind kind of blowing through the pine needles, how it makes that sound. And it was beautiful, but I could not move. I could not do anything. And so it was there was just a large amount of fear and panic at that point in time. And when I first got my grip is when I started thinking about, okay, what's going on with my breath? At least I'm still breathing. And then I started thinking about, well, what can I control? What do I know? And I've been in the medical field for, pretty much most of my career, and specifically actually in spine, of all things. And so one of the things I knew is that the cervical spinal cord did not like to be in a bad position for a long period of time. And so knowing that I was in that, I needed to hopefully alleviate that as soon as possible. I knew that it probably, by the time somebody found me, made a phone call, that it was going to be 40 minutes to an hour before they were able to get to me. The emergency services would get to me. And so that didn't happen for 20 minutes after my accident. But about 10 minutes in, that serene silence that was going on, was interrupted because I just heard a sound that's just familiar, but I couldn't tell what it was, and then it would stop. And then I'd go on and try to think about what it is that I could do, see if I could yell for help, do whatever I could do, and then I'd hear that sound again, and then finally, after about the third time, I figured out it was my cell phone buzzing in my backpack. And it literally was the greatest collision of hope and despair that I've ever experienced. Just thinking, okay, your cell phone, oh, that's right, grab it. Can't. Grab it, reach out and grab it. Can't. Cell phone is our connection to the world. You know, it allows us to contact those that we love, reach out on social media, whatever it is that we're going to do, and have it right there buzzing. It was right there, but it may as well have been a million miles away. And that went on actually for the next 10 minutes before the next rider found me. And I will say that by the time that next rider found me, I was really wanting that cell phone to stop ringing. It was more torture than anything by that point, and I just wanted it to stop.
So before we get to the next step, the rider arrives, hope arrives. I'd love for you to talk with us about kind of the faith aspect of this, because you knew the Lord at this time.
I did.
I think you told me that you'd been baptized just a couple days before that.
Couple
weeks
months.
Before that, couple months.
As my pastor would say, I am not the poster child for getting baptized. That is for sure. But yeah, no, I've always been Christian. I grew up Christian, and it was more because that's what I was taught by my mom. And then, really in my adult life, my pastor came to me and said, "Have you ever been baptized as an adult?" And I said, "Well, I haven't." And I really thought about what that meant, and it's something that I wanted to do because it's a proclamation. It's a proclamation about, hey, I am one in the body of Christ, and I want you all to know that, the congregation. I want the world to know that, and I want you to hold me accountable. I want to hold you accountable. That's what that is.
Sure.
And so I wanted to make that step, and I did, and it just so happened that it was 2 months before this accident.
So in that moment when you're laying on the ground, those initial moments, did God pass through your mind? Did your faith? Talk to me about that.
So I think I was in such a sheer panic mode. It was more along the here and now, and it was in the short, immediate. Will I ever see my family again? Will I ever hold my kid again? Will I ever? And I don't know why this thought came. Will I ever be holding him, sitting on my lap, and smell his hair again?
Yeah.
Those were the thoughts.
Yeah.
That were going through my mind.
Yeah. Wow. It's interesting because all of us respond differently.
Yeah.
In times of challenge, when things get really difficult. Now, I've been blessed that my life has never been on the line like you were facing in this moment. But it's interesting to me how each of us react and the things that go through our mind. And I think what you were experiencing in those moments, Matt, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think what you were sensing, what you were experiencing are the things that are most significant.
Yeah.
I noticed that you didn't say, what was going through my mind was my bank account and my wealth. And oh my gosh, I've got so many things in business I still have yet to get done that if I'm taken from the earth now, something is going to be missing from the legacy that I'm leaving from a business standpoint. But those things didn't go through your mind.
At all.
What went through your mind was the things that are most important, and that is the ones you care about the most. That's amazing to me.
And then what will my existence on the planet be past this, if anything?
Sure. What's that look like, right? What am I facing? And so,
and what's my family facing? Will my wife have to be caring for me, and I'm in a chair and I cannot move a thing on my body?
Wow.
And she's got to take care of me for the rest of my life.
So I'm going to fast forward.
Yep.
So you get obviously found. The riders come. They call in paramedics. They take you down the hill. You go to the hospital, and talk to us about what happened in those moments when the realization became actual?
Well, I would argue that it was pretty actual at the moment, from the entire time.
Especially with your experience in the spinal, you knew.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's a doctor here in town in Denver that I just think the world of, and that was the first phone call I had my friends make, and it was to him. He's actually in the documentary in the film. His name's Lonnie Lutzenheiser, and I just said call Lonnie, and so they did, and he came in, was not on call, came in, left a wedding. Luckily, had not had a thing to drink. And came in, and I really couldn't see anybody's face because I'm always looking like straight up, and everybody's always around here, so I can't see anybody. And by that time, they had drugged me up pretty well in the helicopter. I could tell you that LSD story another time, but man, was that a trippy ride. That was a really trippy ride, but he met me in what's called the T10 room. So you go straight from the helicopter pad straight down basically into the OR. It's one of the only hospitals in the country that has that. And he meets me there. And I just told him not to sugarcoat it. And he said, it's bad. And I said, well, just don't sugarcoat it. Tell me what do you see? And he goes, it's one of the worst cases I've ever seen. In hindsight, I kind of wish I would have said maybe just a little sugar. just a little sugar in there, just maybe something. But he said it's one of the worst cases I've ever seen. And then we talked about it. We did something called an awake traction. And because I was conscious, I was conscious the entire time from the point of the accident. That's kind of a rarity. It doesn't happen all the time. So they actually put a big metal vise on my head, attached it to weights, and pulled my head away from my body to see how well the spine would line up. And I said, I want to see a screen. I want to watch that myself. And so once we went through that experience, he said, I think we've got what we're going to do, and we're going to operate. And I remember something, and this is really interesting. I remember that, and I rarely have said it since, and somebody told me you need to say it more often because it means something. And I said, make it rain. And that's the last thing I said before surgery.
What's that statement mean to you?
Now, looking back on it, without a doubt, it's just the power. It's just the power of God.
You know what?
It really is.
You know what I heard when you said that? Show off, God. Just do your thing. Do your thing. And he truly did.
Truly did.
So you come out of surgery.
Yep.
And I'm sure it was just, I can move my hands.
No.
Not at all, was it?
No.
Talk about what was that like?
And actually, it's an interesting piece because my wife just said, when they showed her the X-ray, they said everything lined up perfectly. And she's like, "Oh, that's great." I go, "That's not that's good, but that's not the answer. The answer is we took care of the bones. We did not take care of the spinal cord itself, and we have no idea what that's going to look like." I'd also love to add the power of prayer right here, because when I was in surgery and the chaplain let my wife know that I might not make it out of surgery, that was a real option. And she didn't know I had a spinal cord injury. So when she met me at the hospital, she had no idea. She collapsed in the compassion room. And there were some good friends of ours who were very strong Christians. And there are some other friends who are strong Christians, but they say, now looking back at that event, that the prayer that happened when my wife collapsed on the floor and actually started praying, and then the individuals that prayed, they said they either were part of or they witnessed a miracle in that room. They say that without a doubt.
You told me when we had coffee, because I said, there was some miraculous things that I want you to talk about that happened over the next 60 days in your life. And again, my jaw hutch is on the floor. And you said to me this. You said, John, if you've never been in a place where literally every thought that anybody has toward you is a good thought, a hopeful thought, a loving thought, and every word that's spoken to you is a word of encouragement, and you can literally feel the prayer around you, then you've never been in a place where the miraculous power of God can transform a life.
Oh, man.
Talk about that 60-day
Oh, man.
journey.
I think it's two really big things that happen right as you're talking about. Number one is, like I said before, at that point of impact, it was decided. I had an accident. Look, I had an accident. It happens to the best, happens to the worst. It doesn't matter. But God decided on that day to give me a miracle card. I believe that. I believe I have an autographed, signed miracle card dropped in my lap by Jesus, by God. And so that in and of itself is the most humbling piece that you could ever have. But at the same point in time, throughout every day that we have, there's good things, there's bad things. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, gives you a sign, because of course it's their fault, but they, do something, or somebody's mean, somebody's not nice. We just experience that on a daily basis. And so then we get this viewpoint of the world as we go through it on what it is, never what it should be, always what it is. And I went from a place to where I was that guy getting up in the morning. I'd put on that suit of armor, that helmet, put the visor down, and I was charging because I could take on the world. Whatever it was, I could take on the world. And I went from being that guy to not being able to feed myself, not being able to go to the bathroom by myself. And at that same point in time, I saw nothing but every single person that I met for 60 days, as you said, just bring an absolute unconditional tidal wave of love. And that is what I think in a way is almost a second miracle, which I felt my heart break apart one night. There was only two things that I would do in the middle of the night. And it was always at 1 or 2 in the morning, and when I wake up at Craig Hospital here in Denver. And it was either work on my hands, right, to get them to work a little bit more, or I'd cry. I would cry, and I would cry not because it was a why me. It was a cry because I was so thankful for all the people that came there, and I saw unconditional love. And I didn't realize that at the end of the day, that is God's love through everyone hitting me like a tidal wave. And it doesn't stop for 60 days. And it broke my heart in the greatest way possible.
And I would say, now I don't think I'm stepping out of line by saying this. I don't know that you could have learned that any other way.
No.
And that's to me what's amazing about God is He knows each of us intimately, because obviously He created us. And He knows how I'm wired, He knows how you're wired, and He knows the things that He needs to do to us and allow to happen to us in order to fully reach us. And I tell you, that's a scary proposition that, when you desire transformation, and we talk about the pursuit being about this relentless pursuit of truth, that's good, but in and of itself, truth not applied is foolishness. But the idea by taking that truth and applying it in a season is wisdom, that's full transformation. That's what God is doing to us on a daily basis. The problem is that move, that 18 inches, right, from knowledge to the heart, which is full transformation, sometimes it's the longest distance we'll ever travel. And that also has some of the most difficult, perilous moments that you could ever imagine or dream of. Matter of fact, I think of the times I've been through, Matt, that don't compare to yours, but they're transformational nonetheless. And I look back and go, man, would I have signed up for that? Knowing what I know now.
Well, I got to tell you, so I sort of jump ahead a little bit because through my miraculous recovery, and my wife is just an astute Bible studier. I mean, apologetics, the whole thing. And she just came to me one day. She goes, I got to tell you, there's a verse I just read that I think you need to hear. And it's Romans 5, 3 through 5. So we glory in our sufferings, for suffering leads to perseverance. Perseverance leads to character, and character leads to hope. That I have dwelled upon for over 2 years. And it is about transformation. That's you all and myself. We are 100% aligned in truth and transformation, and that's like kind of our goal as far as where we're seeking and where we're looking at, and I've unpacked that piece, because I'll have to say, like you said, making those 18 inches, there's the easy way to get transformation, and then there's the hard way to get transformation. And unfortunately, I got the easy way. And there is no other way I could have gotten it.
Wow.
And what I'll say is that I really felt that, and now looking back on it, it was the Holy Spirit through the actions of all those people for 60 days that allowed me to see what I needed to see.
Did I just hear that right?
Let that sink in.
Did I hear what he just said right?
Yeah, because I asked him the same thing in coffee, and he said, and I got the easy way, and I thought he mixed up his words, and I said, no, the hard way. No, the easy way. Exactly what you said, Hutch. You said there are transformational moments in our lives that we would have never chosen to happen. You would have never chosen that to happen.
No.
Maybe now in hindsight, looking back.
I actually would.
Because of what's gone on, and I want to get there because there's some incredible things that have now come after those 60 days of healing that have happened in your life. But he said the word easy, and guys and ladies that are out there, and we're after this deal around transformation, Matt. I mean, we're after transformation, but at what cost, and what are we willing to lay down?
Right.
And there is a process. When I go through it when I wake up in the morning, Hutch, on a daily basis, and I have to decide who I'm going to be that day.
Absolutely.
Putting yesterday behind me, moving in so that I can inch one step forward without sort of minimizing what you went through, because I would never have chosen that. Without minimizing that, I can sort of begin to see your perspective on easy versus hard, because we're all signed up for this long bit of transformation in our lives that happens on a daily basis, aren't we?
I think that if this didn't happen to me, it would have taken me 20 years if I ever got to where I am now, to see what it is that he wanted me to see and experience what he wanted me to experience, without a doubt. And since that time, I've written, I don't even know, 18, 20,000 words towards a book that hasn't been written yet, or maybe even 2 books and different things, just to journal, to understand what it is that I'm really going through Scripture, writing down what that Scripture is, what that means. And I mean, when I unpacked that Romans verse, that was, when you watch the film on our writing kits, it's written. Romans 5:3-5 is on the side of our kit right there on both sides. And I believe that, the 101 basic version is all of us have suffering. Man, we all have suffering. That suffering is like a ball and chain. At any one moment in our time that we're going through our day on a daily basis, we all are suffering from something. The act of perseverance is saying that I'm no longer going to drag that ball around and try and act like everything's okay. I'm not going to go throughout my normal day and just drag that ball around, but try and put a facade onto other people. Try to put a facade onto the world. I'm actually going to pick that up. And I'm going to choose, because that's at the end of the day, the one thing that we have the power of is to choose, right? That's what God gave us initially, the power to choose. He knew what we were going to do with it, but he still gave it to us. And that's sort of our greatest power here on this planet. And when you pick up that heavy ball of suffering and you are living in perseverance, that allows you to go through and start building up the muscles, building up the strength mentally, and sometimes physically, to deal with whatever your suffering is. And then over time, that perseverance builds that character. And that character is a shift in who we are as a person, habitually, how we are on a daily basis, and how we are over time. And then it is that character shift that allows for hope both within you and to other people.
I think of James chapter 1 in the scripture that we hear repeated oftentimes is to consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kind. And you hear that scripture and you're like, what the heck? Consider it a joy to go through a trial? Does that verse mean something different to you now?
Well, I've never read the verse before. So looking at it now, I have a very, very strong viewpoint on joy. And I just think this is interesting. I listened to I think it was a Buddhist monk, and he was giving a TED Talk, like 10,000 people or something, and he goes, I know what every single person in here wants out of life. Because you want to be happy. And at the time, I was thinking, Is he right? Man, there seems to be some truth in that. I mean, heck, it's in our Declaration of Independence, right? Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness.
That's right.
And but after my accident, a friend actually asked me at a breakfast about a year later. He goes, "Are you happier now than you were a year ago?" And it took me 10 minutes, and I never in a million years would have thought about that question the way that I thought about it on that day had I not had my accident.
Mm.
And I literally sat in silence for 10 minutes, and then I looked at him and I said, "You're asking me the wrong question." He said, "You need to be asking me if I have joy." Because happiness is too circumstantial. You have good things that happen. You have people who don't treat you right. You win the lottery one day, yay, you become quadriplegic the next day, boo. Right? You have all those things, but that is not what joy is. Joy comes from within you, relative, no matter what's happening in the world around you.
You know, the way I think about that verse, and you're spot on, man, is joy is not conditional, right? It's not conditional to the things around us. Joy has everything to do with what lens are you choosing to look through your situation through.
Yes.
If it's a lens of self, then you're going to be miserable. You're not going to be filled with joy. You're going to be filled with why me? All those questions that you said didn't come into your mind are going to be the ones that surface. And you're going to be crying because of the circumstances that you're facing, not because of the gratitude that you had. So I think in that moment, in your bed, your hospital bed at 1 a.m, I think whether you knew it or not, you were experiencing joy. Not in the sense that we think of it, but you were experiencing it in a way because you were like going, I've been given this opportunity to experience something that I don't think I would have experienced otherwise.
It almost is not only dead on with that, but almost goes a step further because, I think to the best of my knowledge, there was between 5,000 and 10,000 people praying for me during that period of time.
That's amazing.
And it literally was like, I felt it. It was like 10,000 candles in the middle of the darkest night. And that's what that love was. That love coming from God through other people to me. And there is a scripture. I need to memorize it. I've not memorized it. But it is the stone coming off my heart. And I will tell you, from this day forward, I felt stone break off of my heart in that moment. And it was true joy.
It's unbelievable to me to think that this literally happened 2 years ago. And the mastery that you have over understanding what God was taking you through and doing in your heart and your life through this experience is remarkable to me. And we'll even tee up, I think, this term that you were telling me about the other day called post-traumatic growth, as opposed to PTSD, sort of a disability related to trauma.
Yeah.
This is an ability enabled by trauma, as I understand it, the way you were describing it. And to go from a place of, like you said, John, I was trying to find my arms. Let that term sink in just for a second. When you don't have feeling and you're trying to not move my fingers. He didn't say move my fingers. He said I was trying to find them, right? To a place of a year and a week later of doing the triple bypass, which is kind of the Colorado equivalent of the Ironman, right?
Yeah.
That's post-traumatic growth. So there's some physical manifestation of that, but there's something much bigger and much deeper that God is teaching you through this, isn't there?
It's the tip of the iceberg. It is the tip of the iceberg. And I think that we all need to be open to and to be honest. Truth starts with self. Are you honest with yourself about who you are and what you're dealing with and everything? And when you do that, you can really ask wonderful questions. You can be open to so many things. And I'll tell you, since that point in time, I don't know if it was part of my innate nature. I don't know if it was just the thunderbolt that God threw down on me, or if it was a combination of both. But I could not stop incessantly searching for truth, searching for transformation. What does this mean? I mean, the first book, I couldn't pick anything up. Like you said, I had to find my arm. And no matter, with all the technology that we have, all they can do is set up a bunch of electrodes on your arm and then just blast it. It's like carpet bombing it with electricity. And it's like lighting up your entire neighborhood. Think about your neighborhood that you're in, and it lights up your entire neighborhood. But you're like, I don't need to light up my entire neighborhood. I need to be able to go up to my bedroom and turn on the light there. and you're not telling me how to do that, and they can't do it. And that was shocking to me when I'm sitting there, well, okay, and then they just do this massive carpet bomb, and I'm watching my hand go and everything move. And I said, but no, I'm trying to move my finger. They go, oh, well, we can't do that. No, we just hope that happens.
Wow.
And I got to tell you, that may be another conversation in and of itself, but visualization and meditation, I found my arm through that, without a doubt. Through visualization and meditation is the only way that I found my arm. I was talking to another guy who does not have full ability to walk. He can walk for maybe about an hour, and he needs to be assisted by hand crutches. And he said, but and he literally told me this, I hope he's okay, his name will not be mentioned, but it was beautiful. He said, I picture, before I try to walk, he goes, I visualize my wife and kids sitting in front of the house with Jesus.
Wow. Wow.
He says, when I do that, I walk 50% better on that day.
Wow.
I mean, prayer, meditation, visualization, it's powerful. It is so powerful. And it's just one of the steps that I've learned. But, that was just the beginning part of my journey, and it's continuing. And he asked me, he said, look, I've been really going after and going after everything I can get back. And he goes, but I'm not doing well mentally. And he said, how are you on the mental side? And I said, only when I did the triple bypass did my physical even come close to matching my mental. And one of the first books I had to read, and it's where I started this piece, I couldn't read because I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't hold anything. So I had my wife get it on audio. I put it on my chest and I pressed play. It was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And if you're not familiar with that book, it is an incredible book by a psychologist who was Jewish and who was in Auschwitz. And I had to start there. For some reason, I had to start there. And that's what God was telling me, just calling me. And every day I get a calling on what threads to pull on. And I believe that we all do. It's whether we choose to actually listen and then choose to act upon that. You just have to be open into listening. And so, like we talked about, it was the tip of the iceberg on the true power of God, not just in the miracle that he gave me from a physical perspective, but the transformation that I'm not sure I ever would have received any other way.
Well, Matt, I am so grateful for your story. I'm grateful for your testimony. You're an encouragement to me. I'm sure you're encouragement to many that are watching and listening here today. And we'll be excited. I know there's a lot more. You mentioned the tip of the iceberg, and that literally is that. There's a lot, much more for us to talk about as it relates to this topic and things that God is showing you. And I know the Lord is putting on you a ministry into your heart and how to encourage and strengthen others that are going through very difficult trials. And so we'll be excited to watch that unfold. And fortunately for all of us, you're going to get to hear more from Matt as he's going to continue to do more with the pursuit and share his heart with the Pursuit family that's out there today. So, my man, you're a great man. Blessings to you, brother. I love your heart, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that God allowed our paths to cross.
Me too. Me too.
Amen.
I'm so thankful and so grateful.
You bet.
Just the beginning.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, everybody, I hope you're blessed. I know you are. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of The Pursuit. We'll see you next time.